Greetings, Patrick here, Eight Questions With. Welcome to the show. Here on a very cold and somewhat snowy southeastern Michigan night. I got up this morning to head for the library, and it felt like I walked down there in the middle of January all over again. And tonight we have. I love talking to folks like Cindy here, Cindy Diadamo. She is a public relations expert guru. I love talking to people like Cindy because they have so much knowledge on how to promote yourself and your brand, your channel, and it's very different now these days as far as this goes. Uh, I guess the first question for me to you, Cindy, um, is how did you get into publicity? How long have you been doing it?
Well, it all started back before MySpace was built. I don't know if you've ever heard of the TV show called Dawson's Creek. It was a really big
Oh yeah,
show.
yep.
Okay. So on the show called Dawson's Creek, there was a hit song called Crazy for This Girl. And it was by the duo, Evan and Jaron. They're these really cute twin guys, hit song. So I heard the song on the radio over and over and over, and I thought, who are these guys? So I looked them up online, found their website, went to their website. Now, this is how I'm going to test your knowledge, Patrick. On their website, they had a Java chat box, right? And because there was no MySpace, there was no way for them to interact with their fans. So they used this chat box. So one or the other of the guys would come on daily. And if you were one of the lucky fans that was on when they were on, you got to talk to your star that you were listening to on the radio. I was like, wow, I'm talking to a star. So we'd go over and we'd chit chat with them. And they were so nice. Marketing geniuses, by the way. The one brother, Evan Lowenstein, he developed the platform Stage It. If you know Stage It, where you can perform live and it streams.
Okay.
Okay,
I,
so
I haven't heard that one.
he was the first streaming, like live streaming, like indie guy gets on there, says to their friends, watch me, I'm going to stream, and you can charge $5 a ticket or whatever.
Right. Okay.
That later, much later. But he said to all of us fans, we're building a MySpace. Will you come over? And everybody's like, what's a MySpace? And he said, well, it's just like a little fan club and it's going to be a lot of bands. And we don't want to, and I'm quoting him, he said, we don't want to look like a bunch of dorks opening a MySpace and having no fans. We have a big hit song on the record. We need you guys. And he said, if you don't know how to build a MySpace, I'll build it for you.
Oh
So
wow.
he said to me, you're a big fan. Do you know how to build a MySpace? I said, how hard is it? And he said, not hard. I said, is it a wizard or is it like you have to do HTML code and build a website? He goes, no, it's a wizard. You just pop in. I said, oh, yeah. If you just pop in your photo and what color you want. And I said, yeah, I can do that in like an afternoon. So I went over there to support Evan and Jaron. And that was the beginning of the onslaught of the indie music for me. So that's when I really started music.
Uh, I could tell you from experience how cool it is and how important it is to to do publicity. Um, I talk to a lot of actors. You talk to a lot of actors, and it used to be a band or an artist would do a project, like they record a record. Maybe they might go on tour, but they always, it was like they would let the labels, publicists handle that, or
Mhm.
an actor would book a role and show up and do the movie. And as soon as they're done with their part, they would just move on to the next one.
Right.
Uh, but you can't do that anymore. You,
Not
you even if you're a big star, you just can't just walk. You can't have that attitude like, okay, I came, I saw, I conquered. Um, Now it's I came, I worked. Now I'm publicized.
mhm.
Um, it's really. Have you has that been the biggest thing that you've noticed since you started? Is how more important your job has become
Well,
over the years.
so as far as independent artists go, to me, there's levels of being an independent. There's the guy who just made his first MP3, and he's so excited, and he opened his little whatever, he opened his TikTok or he opened his Instagram, and he's like, here's me. I'm going to be a rock star. I've got my MP3, I've got my Instagram. Here comes stardom. Well, that's not going to happen. But anyway, then there are the people who are relatively well known, maybe in their locality. They're playing shows, they've got their audience. And then there are the indies that are so big that they're right on the borderline of being not indies, but they might just have a small record label and a deal with or as in many cases of friends of mine, they were on a big record label and they're not anymore. Now,
Right.
now they're on a small record label or their own record label. But those are the people that are doing a heck of a lot of self-promoting because they have to.
Yeah.
They don't have the big bucks grinding the machine behind them anymore. They're doing their own thing. And if you look at my TikTok, which you said you did, a lot of the shows that I put up are my personal friends because they don't have the big team. They have like them. And they're, they might have a manager and, they're on the road all over the place, but they don't have people to share their stuff everywhere. So a lot of the guys I met through my years of being online, some are bands that were popular. I'm not gonna say that, we're the same age, but I'm gonna say we're the same age bracket. And, the bands that were popular back in the day, a lot of them are either still playing or people from them are still playing. And they're such nice people, and I met them online. They're wonderful, but they need help. And I'm glad
Yeah.
to share friends in addition to the people that I actually, work with on a one-to-one every day. I've got tons of friends in great bands. And some of the bands have been very kind to us, very generous with us, helped us with contacts, helped us with shows, helped us with people to send things to. So they're anybody you see on my page, they're good people.
And isn't that funny? Because back in the day, that was actually reversed. Like they depended on you to do all that stuff, to have the contacts and this and that, and the
Mhm.
radio contacts when radio actually meant something. That's probably the biggest thing that's probably changed in the last 20, 25 years has, everybody talks about the decline of network TV.
Oh yeah.
I think it's decline of radio. It's radio is not anywhere it doesn't have anywhere near the clout that it used to have. It would make or break an artist. They don't
Well,
have that power anymore. And that's to me, honestly, that's a good thing.
if a radio station was even allowed to break an artist, because the bigger stations, they already have their music, it's pre-programmed. They have no say in what they play.
No.
And the way I know that is my older son's best friend growing up. His mom was the drive in the morning DJ, who cracks all the jokes while you're driving to work. She was on one of our big stations. And I said to her, I represent all of these independent artists. And she said, our music comes to us pre-programmed. All the songs are on there. We have the commercial breaks in there, and we just know when we're supposed to get on the mic and talk. We have nothing to do with the music that's on the stations.
Yeah, I can actually, as far as that goes, I'm trying to think. I know for sure because it's funny because I was in music for 10 years. I moved to Michigan from California, and I knew how the concert scene was shifting. And when I got here, in a really weird way, I didn't listen to any commercial radio. The only thing I ever listened to was just talk radio. Um, but I still kept my eye on it, and what have you. And the only DJ, like I've been here in Detroit for 20 years, and not once has a Detroit act broke out because of radio.
Right.
Not once. The last person I can tell you that I know that actually was truly instrumental in getting a band out there was uh, uh, Carson Daly. He was the last person I know that had enough clout to actually get a band on the air, a local band on the air, and actually get them on a national stage. I don't know if anybody has done that since on that level.
Well,
Um,
no, I don't think on that level, but I did meet a couple of people who I'm originally from Maryland, and our big rock station when I was growing up, like the harder rock, was 98 Rock. And so I became friends with one of the big DJs on 98 Rock. And he told me about a program that they had where they only played independents. It was just one block, and you could submit. He gave me the address. I submitted. And then they also did live shows. At a little place called 8 by 10, which I don't even think is open anymore. They used to do a like music discovery show from the radio station. He doesn't work with that station anymore, but he's a really nice guy. But there's also one in Texas where my Texas artist is, and they used to have an indie block on their big rock station, and I was friends with the guy around the block, and so we played on there. So we've been like, my artists have been played on major stations, but that's because I have a friend, and there's an indie show. So as far as getting an independent artist on a major radio station, and I mean really independent, I mean like somebody that nobody knows, it's
right.
next to impossible. You have to have contacts, which I've got them. I've done this for so long that I've got contacts everywhere. I mean, I work US, Canada, UK, Australia. So I've done projects in all of those places and have friends everywhere.
I'm going to go to the chat here real quick, and a few people have come in.
Nice.
Our friend Jamie Hill, actress Jamie Hill is here, and Tony the Tiger, and also another podcaster friend of mine named Eric is also here, and he and I work together, collaborate on quite a few things as
Awesome.
well. Glad you guys are here, and it's funny. It's like I would, when it comes down to publicity and pushing, it really doesn't matter exactly what you're pushing. It's the same basic concept to get your face out there, whether it be an independent rock band, an up and coming actor, a person with a novelist with their first book, charity work. They all need to be publicized. And the thing is that there's so much content out there, so many people doing this, that it's more hard now to get your name out there than it was when we didn't have this. Because at least when we didn't have all the social media, you still could work your town. You still could go to your local radio station. Maybe they had an hour-long or 2-hour-long block of indie music. I know they did in San Jose. But you could go there and have a reasonable expectation of being seen or being heard.
Right.
Hell, I even got into the when Carson Daly broke when the radio station they were breaking Jewel when Jewel was first coming out, and they were playing her music. And I was like, wow, okay, so how the hell is she getting on the radio when somebody like a Barbara Manning is not? Barbara Manning is a tremendous artist that easily was the equal of Jewel, without a doubt. Penelope Houston was far beyond that in many respects. I got in the office to talk to the program director about getting Barbara Manning on the air. I says, I want you to play some Barbara Manning music. I couldn't do that today. Today, it would just be like you and 10,000 people, like and back then it was like, okay, I'll listen to your pitch. Now it's just overwhelming. There's so much out there. Podcasts. I don't take a podcast seriously until they get 50 shows underneath their belt. because so many people start a podcast and then they
Yeah.
drop it because there's just so much competition out there. And they can tell by their numbers that, if they're a hit or not. Um, you have to do that for, but you have to get out there and push your podcast. Even people who are big names, celebrities, um, they find out too how hard it is
Oh, it
to
is.
do, yeah, to do a podcast. And to get out there, it's like we're talking before we went on, how a lot of actors or a lot of bands, they put out a record, they put out a movie, and then they go on to the next project.
Mhm.
You just can't do that anymore. You got to go back there and push it. You got to go out there because there's so much out there that if you don't go out there and try to make at least a little bit of noise, you're going to get buried.
Right.
And that's the reason why someone like yourself, a publicist, an expert, that's why your job is more important today than it was back in the day. What you do now yourself right now is more important. And if anybody's hearing this or watching this replay, you want to find someone like Cindy to come help you build your channel. I hate to say this word, but it's true. Or help you build your brand. Hopefully you don't consider your music a brand, because you lose a lot of people if you say that. Hopefully you don't put your movie out like, yeah, this movie fits my brand. Nobody wants to hear that, right? But they want you to, they want to be seen, they want to be heard, and it's such a huge clutter. And you need someone like yourself to rise above and take them with you.
Well, I think people have the desire to make the art. And when they're first starting out, that's their main thought. Like, I want to make the music. I want to make the first MP3. I want to make the, 3-song EP. I want to make a full album, which don't do it. Please don't do it. Because, in fact, if you do, and you've done no other work, and this is your work, you plunk down a lot of dollar bills to do a whole album, even if you do a little local studio where there's one guy who wears every hat, does the work, all the work. He might even play all the instruments, who knows. Then you wind up with how much ever you've spent, and then you copy. If you're doing physical media, you might make CDs. You might be making vinyl because there's such a resurgence. And then you wind up with a whole lot in your garage or your basement, because so I told somebody who said to me, "Oh, I want to make an album. I want to make a CD. I'm gonna run off 100." And I said, "Well, you need about 10 to start your publicity, and then you're going to have 90 fabulous coasters." Because what are you going to do with 100 CDs when you're brand new and nobody's ever heard of you? So really, what you need, in addition to the love for your art, is a business plan before you start spending money, so that you spend money wisely with forethought. You have a goal and you do the steps towards the first goal, and then you build on that to the second goal, et cetera, et cetera. That's how it's done.
Oh my gosh, you're so now this is something, this is true. Now everybody's talking about the resurgence of physical media, be it books, be it Blu-ray, CDs,
and glory hallelujah for it, I've got to say.
And vinyl. But the one format where you don't hear anybody talking about, like, I can't wait for that to come back. The only platform I see going away, and I don't see it here coming back, is the CD. I don't even see them in thrift stores anymore. The library where I go once a week to go a little bit of shopping, they used to have shelves. They used to have 2 full shelves of CDs that nobody touched. Nobody. They end up just like giving away for free, and then they decided that they weren't going to carry them anymore at all because they just didn't move. And I see that in a lot of thrift stores like Salvation Army or Goodwill. They don't really carry that many anymore.
Really fun, because before vinyl was a hipster thing, And it was something that you might have had your stuff left over from when they stopped making them, which I saved all of mine. I'm so glad I did. But we would go into the vintage stores and they'd have binfuls of albums,
Mhm.
and you could spend half the afternoon digging. And that was one of my favorite outings, was digging through boxes of old records to see
Oh,
what goodies, and I have found some real winners. Like I got Pet Sounds by Beach Boys. I've got Tom Jones, Nancy Sinatra, and I wasn't old enough to have bought them back in the day. I knew they were on the radio, but I wasn't old enough to buy records and that kind of thing. So to have them now is so cool. And to know some of
oh,
the is so cool. But now that vinyl is a thing again and very expensive, the price
yes.
of vinyl. So now vinyl's a trend. So you can't find these good old records in the bins for $1 at the Goodwill anymore, because now everybody's buying them as it's trendy and hip. So I guess the CDs are going to be in the bins for like 50 cents, you know.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. If they even if they get there, um, I used to go to a record store, and I used to go over there and hit their bins too.
I love
Um,
that.
the dollar bin to $2 bin. I go over there and I'd be looking for bands, and a lot of times I knew who the bands were where I saw them because I read about them in a magazine.
Right.
And one of the guys from the record store, he's a good friend of mine, and we used to give each other a guff all the time. And he played in a really fun band named Nightcry, and and people would they would I mean we would just go in there, and as soon as he see me or I see him, we start barking, just trying to make the other person laugh. One day he comes over to me and I'm sitting in the bin and I got a stack of like I got like a stack like this of all these unknown bands, right? Unknown to anybody but me because I read about them at Flipside or Maximum Rock and Roll or what have you. And he come up there and he grabs my stack out of the hand. He goes, "When are you gonna come in here and actually spend some real money?" And he said this loud. And I, says, "When are you going to come out there and spend some real money? You come in here to this dollar bin area, and just like, when are you going to spend some real money?" And people were just, their mouths were just dropped over, open. And I said, "Well, maybe when there's something good over there, because there's nothing good in the center of that store." And says, isn't your band isn't your band isn't there CD in here too, in this in the discount button,
Right.
discount section? Isn't your CD here somewhere? Where's your CD? So so people, they would think that we were seriously tussling. They're sitting there like, "Oh my gosh, look at that, they're fighting each other." And it's like, no, we're good friends. And Yeah, I had them come open for John Lee Hooker for me. So but that was, I miss those days. I miss those days of I miss those days. And thing too, Cindy, too, is like I used to go and look at a lot of these local band CDs, and I'm sure you agree with me on this. But man, oh man, it used to drive me nuts because there'd be a good band out there. They put out their CD, spent all that money on recording,
Right.
and then they put out the crappiest cover.
Well, see, that's one of the points that I go through with everybody I work with is, I know you don't like the brand word. We'll say image instead. That whatever you put out should be reflective of what's going to be on the music. So, in other words, if I pick up your cover of whatever it is that you've recorded, whether it's your CD or your vinyl, and it's gory and scary and goth looking, and then you open it up and it's some lady strumming on her guitar, la la la, really doesn't jive. Or the reverse, or if it's something beautiful and light and lilting, and I'm talking about, people you've never heard of, not big names, they can do whatever they want. But so your first impression is what you see. So you
Yes.
see the cover. So I'm very insistent on everyone picking a cover that reflects the music that's going to be on the record, so that when or if we pray it gets to a big executive that could do wonders for them, they're going to pick it up and say, oh, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something that sounds like this. Let me hear what's on it. Not, oh my God, that looks horrible. And it may be really good. So we keep everything very across the board parallel as far as the photos, the posters, all the advertisements, the covers of recordings. And I have even done like makeovers to people, hair, and because I'm a former model, so I have that background. And so I have done suggestions to wardrobe changes, because stage is a costume, essentially. It wouldn't necessarily be what you were going to, although some people do it. Like if you're walking the dog, that's probably not going to be what you're wearing if you're performing at the city winery. You might want to bump it up a notch, go into character, so to speak, or whatever. So that's something we work on.
Yeah, I couldn't. It was like I go there and I pick out a record, and the cover would be something out of a preschool. It'd be like, and I was just like, God, who's gonna buy this? No one's
Right.
gonna buy this record because the cover. And once in a great while, not a lot, a great time, a great while, somebody would come over and they want to get my opinion about their record. They come over to the club I worked at, and they sit there and say, "Hey, man, what we went to, because I book a lot of times I book their band, so but they want to come over and check out our new record. They'd be so proud of it." And then they show me the cover, and I would just sit there and hold my breath, going like, "Oh my God, that doesn't represent them at all. It's not who they are."
Right.
And it said this is gonna be so badass, and we're so excited. And I was like, yeah, I'm excited to getting the record out, but I'll be honest with you, man, I rethink that cover. And they go,
Right.
what do you mean? I go like, man, that cover is not, it does not speak to everybody. It speaks to a very small minority. You don't want that. You want the majority.
Right.
It's well, yeah, but we don't want to be like those other metal hair bands at the time. We don't want to be all pretty boys and like, hey, if doing a band pose gets you 1,000 units sold versus 10 sold with this cover you got here, then I would swallow that pride
All
and
right.
go with, that's, sometimes they listened, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes, like I would see the record, they come by, give me a record, and it'd be the same crappy cover, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll be seeing that at the dollar bin, at the local record store.
Well,
And
sometimes not even the choice of the artist. For example, I was working with a wonderful Canadian artist named Bob Rylett, who is a Canadian Americana. So what would that be? Canadian Acana? I mean, what would you call
wow,
Americana?
wow, roots music, call
Yeah,
it roots.
it definitely was that genre, that style. Singer-songwriter, very talented, wonderful guy. And he came to me and he goes, I'm really in a bind here. Got a new record. It's written. It's really good. The music's great. It's ready to go. But he was on a little tiny record label. And he said, look at the cover. This is what they want me to put on it. And it was a graphic artist had made it. It was like a cannon. And I said, what is this? And he said, I hate it. It's horrible. Can you help me? I said, well, I'm a painter. I'm not really a graphics person. He said, will you paint something? I said, sure. I said, what would you like me to paint? He said, anything you want. He said, anything's better than this Canon. Just paint. So he sent me the record. He said, listen to it and then paint something. So I sat down and I started drawing, and then I did a painting and I sent it to him. And he said, how did you do this? And I said, I was painting. And he said, no. He said, it's my mom. I said, what do you mean it's your mom? He said, the lady that you painted is my
Oh,
mom. But listen to this.
nice.
It gets even cooler. He was dedicating the I did not know this. He was dedicating the record to his mom because she was diagnosed with breast cancer and she was doing poorly. And he was dedicating the whole album, and I had painted his mom.
That was wow.
That's cool, right?
It is cool.
It is.
And that's what we need today. I mean, that's why, bands and artists, actors, novelists, they need to reach out and trust their publicist. A publicist is worth its weight in gold today. and you got to trust it. You know, I know a lot of people come out there. You're gonna, you know, a lot of people might hear this and say, "There's a lot of publicists out there." Well, it's just like anything else. You got to do your due diligence. You got to look up the person who, because you're gonna get a lot of people coming out there saying, "I can do this, I can do that, I can do that." And of
Oh,
course, one of the things too is they'll mention money.
oh yeah.
Uh, and you know, and sure, definitely a good publicist needs to be paid, but before you hire that publicist, what are 3 or 4 things, or even 5 things? What should an artist, what should they look for in hiring a publicist? Like if I just met you,
Right.
what am I looking, and what are you bringing to the table that I should be looking for to know that you can help me?
Okay. So, first of all, the artists themselves should know what they're looking for very specifically. Are they looking for a publicist for hire, which is a little bit different than what I do? I'm an A&R and a publicist at the same time, so I invest time, energy, tears, and love into your career. It's not, I don't perform a service for X amount of days and then say sayonara, which there are services that, you know, you can buy for 30 days or 90 days, and they guarantee you, we do these bullet points, which they, I guess they do. And they charge you, here's X dollars, these bullet points, we do this, and then goodbye. So you get a service if that's what you want. There are many services like that that you can just get, you can find them online and pay for them. Then there are individual people like me. So I would say if you're going not, if you're going for the service, just investigate the service. You can just Google it. If you're going for someone that's going to invest in your career and you're going to stay with for a period of time, I would say look at the past work of the person, look at projects that they have done, look at what type of network they have, what type of posts they put out, what their vibe is, because everybody has a different vibe. And I'm not for everyone, but everyone's not for me. I won't take somebody just because they say, I want to pay you. I have to like your music, I have to like your energy, and you have to be able to work because it's a two-way street when we work together. It's like a little,
I like that. I like that a lot. The part where you said that you have to believe in the project before you. I think that speaks a whole hell of a lot to your character, because there are a lot of people that come up there and just take the money,
right.
and that's all they care about. You know, they don't. You know, it's like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I said I'll get you. You know, I'll. You know, I'll. There was a there was a guy who was a publicist for a club that was down the street from mine, and he worked as the club's publicist. And what he used to do, and I always thought it was sort of unethical myself, but he used to work at a music store, and they used to run a magazine. And so what he used to do is he used to go over there and write about the bands that were coming up to playing at the club. Now he wrote this underneath a different name.
Yeah.
In fact, he called himself the Claw, so his name was Howie, and he used to write all he used to talk about all the bands that were coming up and playing the club. And I was talking to one of those bands, and I'm going like, yeah, I saw that you were you know, I said, I see that you're working with Howie. I says, you know, how's he doing for you? He says, well, it's doing pretty good. You know, you know, says, what, I'm just curious. I mean, what does the publicist like him charge? And he says, well, that he tells me that the band member says, well, we pay him $25 every time we get inside a print magazine. He gives, you know, if we get the Mercury News, it's like 150. If we get you know, Bam magazine, it'd be like 75. But I'm going back and going like, wait a minute, did you say $25 for like, yeah, like, you know, for the like guitar shop, you know? And I'm going, oh, that's interesting. So he's publicizing the bands that are not only playing his venue, but he's also charging them. He's placing them in a magazine that he can control, and he's basically he's double dipping.
Right.
You know, and I was like, wow, that's really something else. I didn't think that was right. I mean, of course he's going to be able to put your name in there every month. He works at
Well,
the store.
if people will pay for it, then the guy's taking their money. So there's a lot of that
Mhm.
on. So I would just say, really, investigate and see what it is that if you're a starting artist, you need development before anything. So you need the first steps. You have to have your foundation built before
Yeah,
you put the star on the Christmas tree, because if it's not in the stand, it's going to fall over. So you have to get your building blocks done, and then you build up in a circular manner, and you hit a lot of different boxes as you go, and you keep going and going and going. But you start, a lot of people from started one band from one MP3, and we worked on MySpace together, and that was an experience. But yeah, there's a you I meet people who are in different stages of their career, and they need different things. I'm not like a
yeah,
one shop, it's this amount of money, you get blah blah blah, pay me, give me money, and we're done. It's everybody needs something different. So I want to hear your
yeah.
story. I want to see where you are. I want to see the advice that you need. I want to see the building that you need. How can I help you? What can we do together? Is it a good fit? That's what it's all about. I'm an ethical person, and I don't believe in taking money that isn't earned. And I turned down some pretty good jobs, working for, I'm not going to name drop because it's not right. If you want to know anything personally, you can ask me personally. A couple of big producers came to me and said, would you work with my artists? And I said, well, maybe. And they said, no, we don't want a maybe. We want a deal with you to sign a contract. You will promote our artists, and you give up Lady Lake. You don't do that anymore. You now work for my studio. You follow me around the country. You promote everything I do and all my artists. And I said, but what if the music isn't good? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. You just promote it. So I wouldn't do that. I turned down
Yeah.
3, and that was some dollar bills, but I didn't take them.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, we're talking about the up and comers,
Right,
publicizing them because they're unknown,
right,
and but they're fresh. They're hyped up. Their energy's high, pretty
yeah,
much always high.
right,
Like I always said, the two best shows that I ever booked were the band's first show and any record release party. Always looking for those because they
right,
always brought the crowds.
exactly.
But I also know too, and I also worked with a lot of bands that were once well known, but they faded. They faded.
Mhm.
Um, that's got to be super hard as a publicist. How do
Yeah,
you how do you how do you how do you get a band like? Can we mention one band that you're working with at a venue? Because I was impressed with it that you do have them playing your.
that
I'll do this one. I booked the Ohio Players. The Ohio Players came and played for me at the Oasis. I used to book the Oasis.
mhm,
We'll use them. Now, of course, they're way past gone as far as as far as putting out records. I mean, they hadn't
right,
put out a record in years. And but they were still touring the country.
right. They're like a
Um, you know,
revival reunion, and people love those.
right. I mean, there wasn't all the original members. It
Right.
was it's just, but they're turning underneath the name. Uh, Super nice people. Oh
Awesome.
my gosh. Their road agent was one of the nicest ladies I ever met in the business. Um, but they were touring, like you could tell that they've seen better days.
Uh-huh.
And I I'm glad I booked them. Though we only did like 400 or 500, I think it was, out of a 1,000-person room.
Mhm.
And so you could just tell, and it was hard getting any radio behind it. Radio were like, who? And it was
Right.
like, wow, that's really disrespectful, because it's like
Yeah,
the Ohio Players were once very well known, and
right.
and they're influential. And so some 25-year-old college kid coming out there and saying, who are they?
Exactly.
Um,
not the demographic or market for that band anyway. So
No, it was just like, wow, you really don't know who they are. I mean, ask your parents. Um, and they came over, and to me, the thing was like, okay, well, you could do one or two things. You could just relax and just know that people know who the Ohio players are, and just like, okay, or you get out there and you bust your ass for it.
mhm,
Well, of course, I busted my ass for it.
right.
Um, uh, uh, um, but I still only had between 400 and 500 people.
Mhm.
Was not very big show, and their tour had actually been a lot like that. I mean, they were going from playing in front of, until the festival started, until the bigger concerts, and
Right.
even then, they might get opening spot. And you sit there and you think about the Ohio players getting an opening spot. That's just crazy. They were
Yeah.
headliners at one point.
Well,
Is
I
it harder? Is it harder to promote a band like that
it was
has seen?
well, okay. So there's a couple of I have so many stories. We could do another show, but um, I'll tell you a story of someone that I worked with, and I'm not going to name names. You can come to me personally about anything. So this gentleman was formerly on a big label, and he lost his contract, and now he's on like a DIY little label. And he was famous enough to have been on all the late night shows, Letterman, all that stuff. You can tell when he was famous because I said Letterman. And
Yeah,
so now he's, I would say, an upper crust indie because people still know who he is, and he's very talented, but he's not famous with the younger people, and he's very good. His manager does his tour, and she books him at the same places as my people play, which I find curious. But then when I look at the amount of publicity that he gets, he's not really promoted properly. So she came to me and asked for help. He was involved in Bruce Springsteen's charity, and I have a lot of friends in Asbury, and the Light of Day Foundation does a European run with a bunch of singer songwriters from the generalized area, and he was going over on that. And so I was representing him, but the entire group did not have a PR person. Bruce Springsteen's charity did not have a PR person to go to Europe with. So I just called everybody I knew, DM'd everybody I knew, emailed everybody I knew, because I have a whole European side, links, radio, everything. And I got them all kinds of stuff. They didn't have anything. And I said to his manager, why don't they have a PR person? She goes, well, they do. And I said, well, what is this PR person doing? Because I don't see
mm,
any radio interviews. I don't see any magazines. I don't see anything. And they're going next week. Where's all the preliminary? You should have all this. You should have all kinds of stuff that you're talking about right now. Anything with Bruce Springsteen on it, somebody's going to take it. Some radio station's going to take it. Some magazine's going to take it, right? Bruce Springsteen,
right.
of course. So she said, you're really good. So she recommended me to this whole entourage, I'll call them. And they weren't having it because I'm a blonde chick. And how could I do real work? How could I know anyone? How could I be a professional? And then I got them all this PR. So then they all befriended me. But prior to that, it's a boys club.
A
To the
lot, a lot of people, you know, and this is the danger. I mean, this is the danger too. A lot of these older bands, they rely on their name. They rely, like, you tell people like, yeah, it's they're connected to Bruce Springsteen. Oh,
right,
that'll put 1,000 asses in the seats.
right,
I hate to say it to you, but that might have worked about 25 years ago.
right.
Doesn't work today, does it?
Well, it didn't get, I thought there would be so much buzz and so much hype. That's what I expected. And when
Yeah.
they're all very talented and the shows were all really nice, but I was expecting the media to be very enthusiastic about this, but I guess the word didn't get around. I didn't get a press release until the plane was actually flying to the UK. And I should have got a press release like way in advance so I could do work. So it is what it is. And I really love all of them and they're all talented. It's just not the way that I work personally. Everybody does,
Right.
everybody does things differently.
Let's see. We got some folks that came in. Jerry, hi. And Jerry's saying hi to you and me both. I do believe this is my buddy Hobbs in front of this. Says here, says who is the PR person for Tiny Tim? that's a good question. Let's see. He wants me to hold up my cup. Are you being sponsored now? I'm not being sponsored, but I do have a Tigers cup. I'm looking to, I want to be sponsored by the Cincinnati Reds. So, one of these days I'm going to bring out the Reds cup and hopefully it'll give me a sponsor. But until then, I'm using my Tiger cup. And then, yeah, that's a good question. Who represented Tiny Tim? It's really interesting. Whoever did a good job toward the last half of his life because he was being seen more, being more toward the end. He passed too soon, of course.
Yeah.
But there was a time in his career where he was completely forgotten. And then, social media, maybe a hot movie or a song placement, that helped bring him back to the public eye. But you can't depend on that. You got to go out there and make it happen. And one of the first things you can do is make it happen is hire a good publicist. If you're serious about that. I know a lot of people says, well, I can handle my own publicity. And I've had people tell me that. It doesn't really end up so well because they just don't know where to go. They don't know where to start.
Also, there's no objectivity because, it's about you. There's no sounding board. There's no second opinion. There's no help with the situation. So it's always better if you're stuck on something to say, hey, what do you think? Right? Ask a buddy, hey, what do you think of this? Or do you like this? Or what do you think of that? So we kind of do that as well. Do I have a second that I could introduce my friend that I brought?
Sure.
See this little guy, you guys? He's so cute. His shirt says Companions in Courage. And his name is Stitches LaRoar. And in addition to being a publicist who works in entertainment, I donate my social media network to charities. And this charity is called Companions in Courage. They are CIC16.org. They were founded by Pat LaFontaine. If you like hockey, you'll know that he is a Hall of Famer. And what they do is they build these interactive playrooms in pediatric hospitals for very sick kids. And I love them. And I love this little guy. And I just wanted to put a little plug in for one of the many charities that I support.
I have a question. Is he supposed to be a lion?
He is. He's like a friendly lion. He has the little lion tail and the little crazy mane, and he's just like a friendly lion. And their rooms are called the Lion's Den. The playrooms that they create are called the Lion's Den.
Here's my 2 cents as far as publicity goes, to increase your sales and donations or what have you. But I think if you swap the lion out for a cheetah, you might find yourself with a little bit bigger pop because cheetahs are very, very popular animal. I don't know if you noticed my title of my channel here. It says Half Cheetah Wilby. Not that I'm saying that, not that I'm trying to suggest that cheetahs, okay, maybe I am. But I love the lion. I think it's very cute. I think, do you think it's hard to promote charities? What's more harder to promote, in your opinion, charities or like where you're asking people to donate money to, or artists such as novelists or actors or public figures? What's more difficult to promote, in your opinion, and why?
To promote is someone who has no name and no build. And that's the hardest because you're trying, even if they're good, no one's heard the name. at least this charity is associated with a big sports figure, and a lot of people follow hockey, and a lot of people know who Pat is, and so he has, the built-in celebrity, which will attract people. And I find that even charities that aren't associated with famous people, I also work for the hashtag called Clear the List, which is for teachers, because teachers don't have enough funding to buy the supplies for their classrooms that they need. So the teachers go onto Twitter/X and basically beg for people to help them with classroom supplies. And they use the hashtag Clear the List. And I do 2 campaigns per year, and we get about 40 to 60,000 views per campaign for these teachers. And then I pick one teacher that I sponsor, and I buy things for her off of her list. But I donate my time to that twice a year, for a couple of weeks at a time, to help teachers.
That's amazing that you have to do that. That we have to promote or hype up the fact that teachers don't have any supplies, and
Well,
teachers they get. Oh, go ahead.
they want the teachers to buy the things out of the salary that they make. And some of these teachers, the one who I really like, I'm personal friends with, she's a special needs teacher in a Title I school. If you know what a Title I school is, it's a very low income. So all the families have like very low incomes. So the kids come to school with no school supplies. There are kids that don't have a pencil. Can you imagine that? They come with nothing and they're hungry. And she provides everything in the classroom plus snacks.
Yeah, that's wrong in all the and up and down. Well, I've heard of teachers do that.
I don't get political, but I'm gonna say this. If you've got so much money that you don't know what to do with it, and there's plenty of people who are that, not me, but there's plenty of people who are that kind of rich, and there's kids who don't have a pencil or a breakfast. Come on, people, that's a no-brainer. That is a no-brainer. Children. I can't get behind it. Call me whatever political term you want, but I can't get behind that.
Can you imagine someone like a Jeff Bezos or a Zuckerberg or a Musk? Can you imagine what would happen if they decided to sponsor like the 10 lowest schools in every state? 500 schools, they're going to sponsor them. Do you know how much, what that would be like? Hell, I mean, the publicity itself would be a godsend. And I'm sure that other people will pick up on it. But could you imagine if they actually did something like that to do something for the good?
It's so sad in a country that has so much wealth, and despite the fact that there's a lot of different things going on that people do or do not agree with. I'll be Switzerland on that statement. To have that much wealth and such poverty. Not somebody who doesn't have what they want to eat for dinner, but somebody who doesn't have anything to feed their kids just breaks my heart. And someone like me who is not at all well off, my husband died, and I do my job, and I donate money to, I give time, I give energy, I'm working for all these people, I charge them nothing. I don't know, maybe you just have to have a different mindset and a different kind of heart. Maybe that's what this world needs.
Well, a good publicist, there are a lot. I mean, they do specialize. I think you probably specialize more in the arts, right? I mean, that's more than and what, the arts, it's critical. I mean, we're talking about bands and actors and novelists or what have you, and the arts, and they are so critical. We need creatives out here. We cannot afford to have that go away. And a good publicist who can get their clients out there in the public eye, and they're doing, not only they're doing the act, doing well by the act, but they're really, basically, if you think about it, they're really helping all of us. When someone goes to a concert and they're having a great time, there's 30,000 people there because someone publicized it. Everybody's having a good time. Everybody's get a chance to put their life on hold for a couple hours. It's very helpful. It's very helpful. It's very important that we have that, and we actually and important that there's people there to see it. I mean, like the concert tour, the tour was expecting to tour on just on Bruce Springsteen's name. That just doesn't. Oh, I'm just thinking about that now. I'm like, his name does not hold that much clout that anymore. I mean, it just doesn't. People are, and really the attention span of people today. I mean, is it safe to say 25% of the people probably don't even know who he is? Yeah, it's probably about right. There's probably people out there don't know who he is or what he's done.
Probably. I would say,
Uh,
I would think a true music fan would know. However, I just met a guy the other day. He's starting a band, and I started naming names that he should look up, and he didn't know a lot of the classic artists. And I'm like, you need to listen to some music.
yeah, yeah. I need to listen to music.
We
Sometimes I'll go to
all need.
spot. Sometimes I go to Spotify. Sometimes I go to Spotify and I'll type in new artists and I'll listen to it. And yeah, I hear some really good. I hear some really good bands. I hear them going like, wow, this is really good. Would I book it? Hell yeah, I would. And I've had bands that come on the show here, and I'm thinking, wow, would I book them at my venue? Yeah, I booked every single person I've talked to on the show. I would have booked it at my venue, and a lot of times I didn't know what their music sounded like. So it's yeah.
Interesting.
Like if someone, I also go by word of mouth too. Like I would also hear a lot of people mention a band or a singer or what have you, and then I would put it in the back of my head, and then once if I saw their record out or had a chance that they were touring, uh, then I would do that. I would book them. Like if you came to me and says, Patrick, I got this great singer songwriter. I think you dig talking to her. I would sit there and say, well, I know Cindy, and I know her ear is pretty damn good. So I'm going to go ahead and
That's
say
why
yes to that.
they call me the ear.
Yeah. Well, that was my whole thing for me. My career was my ear. My ear was really that's why I got hired for to book the clubs that I did was because I had a really good ear. But I trust other people, not everybody. Like I would trust you if you sat there and say, "Hey, I got a singer songwriter for you. I think you
I,
really dig him." And I would sit there and say, "Well, let's make that happen, or let's get him on a show or something like that."
mhm.
Because I know who you are. I'm not booking them because of who he is. I'm booking them because of who you are. Because you and you publish if you're publicizing, if you're putting yourself on the line, spending your money on the line, I'm gonna trust that. I'm
Mhm.
gonna sit there and say, she knows what she's talking about. I'm gonna go book that act. You
Awesome.
know, and I think that's a sign of a great publicist when you just go ahead and just like, yeah. Well, like you said, the people came over, they wanted to hire you.
Oh yeah.
They trust your ear, they trust your voice. But there's another side of publicity that really isn't talked about very much, which is really remarkable considering today's cancel culture.
Yeah.
And that is, what do you do when a client stumbles? Um, in the public eye, they stumble, they get arrested, they get caught in a bad position, a record comes out, doesn't do very well, their tour goes out there and tanks in front of, tanks. Um, someone like a Jennifer Lopez, she was supposed to go on tour and she ended up canceling her tour because they weren't selling tickets.
Tickets.
Um, yeah, they weren't selling tickets. Nobody wanted to see her for the price that she was asking for. Um, well, how do you deal with that? To I don't know if redeem is the right word, but how do you revive an artist? What is the publicist's role in doing that and reviving someone's
I
career?
only speak from the arena that I work in, which is mostly everyone is an independent, and there are plenty of people who spent a lot of money on a record and the record bombed. And unfortunately, they had put their money into the record before they came to me. And I said to them, you know, when you're first starting out, the worst mistake that you can make is to sink many, many thousands of dollars into a full album when you don't have a business plan, because you're going to lose money. And you want to at least recover the money that you put in, if not make profit on top of it. But when you first start out, unless you have huge connections, you should not do a full record and spend a lot of money, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to lose it. Also, don't sign with a big producer. You don't need it. Don't give anybody $75,000 for a record. Please
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, friends of mine did that.
Yeah, friends of mine did that too.
And they lost everything.
Yeah.
So don't do that. Please don't do that. All you need is a local studio, local guy, you know, 3 songs, EP. That's more than sufficient for your first go round. And then you need somebody who is going to help you, like me. And then you need to do your side of the work. You have to work as well. It's not somebody does the work for you. You work too.
Yeah, EPs are, it used to be the EPs were done between albums, between major, main releases. Or I always said, put, like, or they were, used for demos. You put your best 3 songs down on an EP, maybe another one just to fill it out a little bit
Right.
for, because you want to feel that someone who's buying this is, they're investing money. You don't want to sit there and charge $12 for 4 songs. People they're not gonna really go for that. Even today, they won't go for that. But if you put 4 songs on there and you charge $5 or download it for free on Spotify or whatever, that's a great move. EPs are, yeah, I agree with you about the full length albums too. I never thought I would sit there and say that, but
well, I'm just talking about when someone's first starting and they have no audience and they have no fans and they have no one that's going to buy their music and they don't have any shows and they want to create it so badly, but they go into a studio and they spend many thousands of dollars. I would never advise that.
no. What we're talking about is when a band gets signed, a band might get signed to a contract for a big label, and the label will sit there and say, okay, we're going to give you $250,000 to make your record. So you go out there and or more. You go out there and you make your best record you possibly can. What even though you're signing for $250,000, it works like this. You get the $250,000, you go out there and you make your best record, but all the sales from your record, you have to pay back the label the money that you spent on that record. They get to recover their money first before you see a dime of it. So, when Cindy mentions, like, don't go to a big name, even though Steve Albini is out there and you can go out there and ask him to do your record, it might cost you that $250,000, but think about it. Now you got to go out there and recoup that.
And you're
going to be you're going to be on the road for years. Every money that you make that you're making from that show, you have to pay back to the label until you pay it back the $250,000. That's a lot of pressure on a lot of bands, and it is a mistake that they make for the first record, is to hire a big name and hope that the big name producing the record, Butch Vig did it. You hope that it comes back, and a good publicist will actually fight tooth and nail to help you do that. Not a poor one, and not an in-house publicist, because the in-house publicists, they don't care about you.
Right.
They don't care.
They're right. They're not on your team.
No, they're not on your team. Someone like Cindy is. You go out there, you hire her to help you get the best publicity, the best interviews, the best on TV, the news, the radios, playing at a bookstore, playing an acoustic set at a coffee shop. That right there is a good publicist and helps you get out of the hole so much faster. Our friend John is here. Let's see. Okay. First, our friend says, Pat is a celebrity. I know when he goes to his local supermarket, he gets recognized all the time. I think everybody does that. But no one's ever recognized me at the grocery store. See, our good friend John is here. See, been back to music again. Whenever with Danny Hassel, we rock out after a day at the con. We actually have jam event at a con. I let's see. Oh, okay. So he's gonna be playing at a convention. Oh, that's cool. I the record. Let's see. I record Let's Doomsday Crypt self promote. Um, the company's making it all. Um, yeah, you know what though? I think that that's the reason why that's the reason why bands don't always sign for the record labels anymore. It used to be that was the goal for every band was to get signed to a major label. You don't have to do
But
that anymore.
well, a record deal is only as good as the contract.
Hmm.
And if the contract, pardon my French, but if the contract sucks, it doesn't matter who you're signing it with. You have to have it read for you. You have to understand all the stipulations. You have to make sure that's what you want. It's not the only thing that you're shooting for anymore. Used to be, but no longer. And even some
Um,
small record label deals are not good. I was an A&R
no,
for a couple of places, and I can tell you, watch what you sign.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The labels are wow. They're like commercial radio. Their days of having that much clout is it's over. I mean, it's you can make your own record. You can make your own record and load up on Spotify now, and actually probably have a fighting chance to make the same money, which is probably next to nothing, the same money as a major label. But the thing is, though, if you look at a platform like Spotify, what it's really designed for, it's designed to get you out there in the public eye.
Mhm.
If you can get them to follow you, and you can, and again, a great publicist will have you interact with the band. Says, here's what you need to do. You need to play on your YouTube channel, or you need to play on Instagram or whatever, so fans can see you, so they can buy the record through you at a concert. I mean, if you depend on Spotify to pay your bills, you're going to be starving. But it's a good way to advertise
Yeah.
yourself, and then the publicist can help you get interviews and in-store shows.
Once
Some
a,
can
once an
some can
artist,
even book you.
once an artist has established themselves on the different platforms and they've got a following on each one, my analogy to them is you have a refrigerator. Each platform is a different refrigerator and it's full of food, which is your fans and followers. So if you, Patrick, have a refrigerator that's full of stuff and you don't open the door, then you're going to be hungry and your stuff's all going to spoil. So open the dang door and see what's in there, right? So go on your
Right.
platform and, say stuff to your fans. Give them pictures behind the scenes. Here's me in the studio. Here's when I was recording my new song. This is a bunch of, here's the guy who does the drums. Here's the keyboard player. Here's us whooping it up, because fans love that stuff. And they want to talk to you and they want to feel like they're a part of things and they want to interact.
Yeah.
And those people are really successful. The people that communicate with their fans, the people that are involved with their fans. And when the people start coming out to your shows or recognizing you in the grocery store, or you're in the bank and you're like, hey, aren't you so and so? I saw you playing so and so. I posted something on TikTok the other day and some guy I didn't even know came over to me. He goes, I've seen that guy on stage. He's fantastic. I'm like, great, that's good. That's wonderful. So yeah, so you have to, use what you got. If it's sitting in the palm of your hand and you're not using it, that's your fault. Because here it is.
Yeah. So I don't want to get away from this because I think I did. I think I talked myself out of it. I want to go back to I
Yeah,
wanted
okay.
to go back to how do you redeem an artist that's been that's stumbled. Um,
Well, there are lots of stumblings these days.
yeah,
And
yes, there are.
I'm trying to be very careful in my word choice. So, unless it's something horrible and unforgivable, people's attention span is like that of a flea. It's just like, and you're inundated when you go on Instagram or, wherever, you're inundated by so much that whatever you read yesterday or the day before, you may remember if it was about somebody you're really interested in, but the general stuff you're not going to. So if somebody's concert was terrible, or if somebody's record didn't do well, it's not the end of the world. The sun is still up in the sky and the grass is green and, the sky is blue and tomorrow is going to come. I sound like Annie. But people really don't care that much unless it's a terrible, unforgivable thing, which usually it isn't. There are scandals from the past that still kind of carry around with people. I know that people can't get booked on certain shows because of things from the past, and people can't get parts in certain movies because of things from the past, but really, most people let it go.
Let's see. Okay, John mentioned. Okay, so here's John mentioned. I just saw this. We're still getting tunes together, jamming with a pal for 30 years. First person jammed with. We got some catchy things. Works ahead. So John's got a new record. Looks like that's actually gonna be recording some music here. So and just send me the raw sound. Yeah, I'd love to hear it. Definitely. Now you also work. You also worked as far as the recovery of an artist, their reputation. I do think you make a lot of good points about that. And I guess that can work. The fact that people have a short attention span, and they say that the average recovery of a person who's been canceled is 3 to 6 months. And there's certain things that they're not supposed to do. They're not supposed to play the victim. They're supposed to take accountability. Have you been in a position of that where you've had to deal with somebody who you've had to you've had to go as far as the publicity goes and get their name out there to the right ears?
Not someone that was mine. I had an adverse experience where we had an artist appear on a show and it was an unbelievable disaster. And had that gone to air, it would have been unbelievable. Thankfully, the show host just canned it, right then and there. And it was a well-known person who had sold many records, who was on many TV shows, but obviously, I'll just say has some issues. I'm trying to be so careful because I don't want to hurt anybody or hurt anybody's feelings, but this particular person I would never have anything to do with again. And it's a shame because I really did like their records, but not a very good. It's very sad when people you really like, who you meet, kind of bust your illusion.
Yeah, I've had a few of those. I get reminded of it a lot too. My last show, the last show I booked before I came out here to Michigan, I see his name all the freaking time, and I'm just like shaking my head, going like, I wish to God I could have went out on a higher note. But the only thing I can sit there and say is, what I did when I worked with him, he was really, really a nice guy, and nothing like you see today. I mean, that person was not there, but now he is who he is, and man, it's just freaking embarrassing. That happened. You have that over your head, like, hey, didn't you work with him? Yes, but he was a great guy. He's not so great now. I have no control over that. That happened almost 30 years ago, but I still hear about it.
But then there's the reverse when you meet someone and they're amazing.
Yes.
So I'll tell you two people that were really cool. One I had met before and one I had not. So the one I had not was Tony Orlando.
Nice.
He came on to the show that I promote, and he's amazing. you know, as famous as Tony Orlando was and still is, he is just a regular person, so nice, so kind, thanks you for everything, thanks you for promoting him. Who else did that was the Bellamy brothers. So nice. They came over to me and they said, thank you so much. I had an artist on the same show as the Bellamy brothers. They were back to back on an interview show like this that had 2 guests per segment. And so I promoted them too because I was promoting my guy. And then I said, well, here come the Bellamy brothers. They came over and they said, you're so nice. Like, we're not used to that. Why would you promote us? And I said, why wouldn't I? So they
Yeah.
friends on everywhere, and that's why I was promoting them the other day. We've been friends ever since. They're great guys, by the way, Bellamy brothers. But who's lovely is Tommy James. If you've ever worked with Tommy James, what a cool guy, and stories for days. He's a great guest, by the way. And
Wow.
I met him in Maryland at a club. He was doing the New Year's Eve show, and he was the nicest guy, and I was like 20 something. And then he appeared on the program that I promote, and instead of talking about music and music history, they started talking about UFOs and aliens, and it was the best thing. I was just so into it. He's the coolest. He makes Tony Orlando's a great guest, and he's a great guest. Tommy James.
Yeah, that was I love it. I love it when that happens where where they go off tangent and they talk about you know, because you know it's like when you do an interview show as well, and you know, like I don't know if you do. I don't know if you do preset questions. I don't hear. I just go off the fly. But it is fun as hell when you talk to somebody and they're expecting the same questions, and then
Yeah.
you hit them up with UFO questions. It's like, you know, they and you see them just literally light up. You know, light up. You know, all right, something that we can talk about. You know, it's like, yeah, you know, we don't have to always talk about the same things you always get asked about. We could always say, you know,
Sometimes shows are very predictable, and it's the same series of questions, and you kind of know what's coming at you. And then
mm,
sometimes people get very creative, and they ask you something that is so off the track, and you can't possibly have anything prepared, so you have to be spontaneous. And that's when it gets fun and interesting, and you get into storytelling, and you get to kind of know the um, celebrity or guest or whoever, and that's what makes a really super interesting segment, I think.
I want to talk a little bit about your company, um, Lady Lake Public Relations. Tell us about the creation of your company and what services do you provide?
Okay, so I started in our pre-show chit chat. I started on MySpace when a little indie band came over and said, "Hey, lady, will you listen to my music? How do you know Evan and Jaron? Do you know them? Are you famous? Are you somebody?" I said, "No, I'm not famous. No, I'm not somebody. I do know them, and I will listen." And they were very good. And they said, "Can you talk to them for us?" And I said, "Well, it depends on about what." And they said, "Well, we're going to do a show with them." We got to be their opening act, and it was at a club in New York. And so I went over to Evan and Jaron and I said, "Hey, have you heard of this band?" And they said, "No." And I said, "Well, they're your opening act." And they said, "Well, our manager must have, did a deal or whatever." And I said, "Well, would you do me a favor and listen to them and then come back to me and tell me what you think? Like, do you think they're good? Do you think they have any promise? Do you think, you know?" So they listened and they said, "Yeah, they're not bad, but they're kind of young. They need to be a little bit more serious about entertaining an audience and working at a venue in New York." And so they have some growing up and stuff to do, but the music was good. So I started helping that little band who was the opener for the famous guys. And then people were just trickle over. And then I thought, well, I can really probably help these guys out if I just figure out a little more of what it is that they need. So I met a guy named Michael Harnett, and he hadn't gone into everything he's into now. I don't remember what he was doing back in like 2006, but he said to me, "Oh, I can give you all this advice." So Michael Harnett gave me a 3-page document of things to do to help promote indie artists. And I followed it by the letter. And then I met a lady who was a program director at a community radio station who I just talked to this morning on the phone. We've been friends that long. And she said, sure, I'll tell you how to, help bands get on the radio. Then I met a manager of a big band up in the Asbury scene. And I said, what do I do? Your act is so famous. And how do you, she goes, stick with me, kid. She said, I'll
Right.
teach you. Then I met a guy who was a disc jockey. And lo and behold, he got, at the time, this was a very big promotion. He got appointed as the assistant to the head of Sire Records. And he had just been a DJ prior to that. So he goes, I'll help you because you help me all the time. I'm going to teach you how to submit artists to a label. Like, what are the requirements? Here's what you need to do. And he sent me this big thing. So all these people, I was like a sponge learning from all these people. And that's how I learned how to do what I do, which is a combination of A&R, artist development, and promotions. That's what I do. Or I can also just help you by using my social media to share your information, because I have a gigantic network. If you're a person who doesn't have social media, I can put your stuff on my social media.
How important is social media to the publicity game? I mean, has that been the biggest single game changer in publicity? Is social media?
It's the bee's knees. It's the cheese nips of it all. If you're not on social media, you're not relevant. Period.
Right.
And the people who say, I don't like social media, you're selling out, I don't want to be on there, all the millionaires own it, the billionaires own it, blah, 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 blah. You tell me, as someone who's in music and wears a lot of hats, if somebody comes to you and says, I have a new band called the Chocolate Cupcakes, you're going to go to Google and you're going to type in the Chocolate Cupcakes, because you want to see what's up with the Chocolate Cupcakes. Where are they playing? What are they doing? What's up with them, right? What are their numbers? What's happening? So if somebody is against social media, which is basically promotion, what are you doing? Nobody. Who buys magazines? Who buys newspapers? Who goes to all the old-fashioned social media? So I mean the old-fashioned media anymore. They don't. Everybody and their brother and their dog and their cousin and their whatever is on Instagram and Facebook, and we met on TikTok.
You're not kidding. You mentioned the animals. You're not kidding. I mean, people have they have channels for their pets.
Oh, sure.
Yep, I got that too. This is one of the things that used to drive me nuts. With punk rock, because I love punk rock, and that's what I listened to, and I booked a lot of the bands. But it used to drive me freaking nuts, Cindy, when you would hear them talking sometime about like a band, and they would call them a sellout, and I said, yeah, they're a sellout, and I just go up there and say, who's a sellout? And for a while there was Metallica. Everybody's just like dumping all over Metallica, and I'm going like, why are you dumping on Metallica? Well, did you see their concerts? They're playing with an orchestra. What kind of BS is that? And to me, I just said to them, I said, well, they have to change. They can't put out the same record over and over and over. Well, they're just trying to go mainstream. Okay, let me ask you a question about you and your band. Why did you form your band? Why did you put it together? What was the purpose of it? Well, because we have music we want to make, and a message to okay, how are you going to do that? I mean, we're going to make records. Okay, how are you going to get it out to the people? I mean, it may work here in San Jose, but how are you going to get it out to Oregon or Washington? Well, we're going to send it to the radio. We're going to and I just sit there and say, do you hear what you're saying? You're doing everything that they did before you were here. You're following the same footsteps. I mean, so how are they a sellout? I mean, you want to be heard. So do they. So where's the sellout? You lost me. And then a lot of times they would just sit there and say, well, I didn't really look at it that way. I'm going like, you got to quit listening to people who sit there and say, that anybody on the radio station is a sellout. No, it's just an evolution. that's the next step in their career. It's the next step in your career if you get that lucky.
Well,
You know, it's,
music is an art, and then there's the music business, which is a business.
mhm,
And the object of being in business, you don't go into business to lose money. You go
no,
into business to make money. So if you're a musician and you're in the music business, your goal is to make some money, hopefully.
yeah. I
So
mean, yeah, you want to play a practice space and drink beer and and not play out any shows. That's that's fine because that's what you want to do.
but
But
when you run any sort of a business, it doesn't matter what your business is, there are people who do business well, and there are people who don't do business so well. And usually those businesses don't keep going. They don't go into fruition, they just flop.
right.
So if you don't
Uh,
want to go into business as a musician, then it's your hobby, which that's fine too. If you want to be the guy who plays a little thing on the weekend every once in a while and that's it, and that's fine. But don't put down the people who are in the music business doing business to
right.
make money from what they do. It's
Yeah. I mean, I think you talk to any band that signs a record deal, they're not signing the record deal to go into debt. They're signing the record deal to
hopefully
hopefully
make
get out there and get big and
make it
be
in the
able to
business.
do this.
Right.
Right. My last question to you is, what are you currently working on as far as your company goes? Are you working on with any clients, any clubs, any tours at the moment, or
Okay, so I work in music and I also work in film. So I'm working on a series of independent films. Um, one of which is, I call it my movie, although it's not really mine. It was my concept. It's a romantic comedy called Saving Paradise. And then I'm working on two other movies. One is called The Red River, and then the other movie is The Adventures of Bunnyman, which is a horror. Um, it's an interesting kind of horror, though. And then we have a TV series called The Nightcrawler. So I'm working on all of that on the TV film side, which I have meetings for and work on every week. And you'll see, if you go to my TikTok, you'll see all the posters and everything. Then on the music side, I'm working with an artist in Corpus Christi, Texas, named David Martinez, and he's doing a single by single release until we get all the singles for an album. Then the album will come out. We just came out with a single called Standing, which is excellent. It's got a little bit of a Lenny Kravitz kind of vibe if you dig that kind of music.
sure?
Little old school, funky. So that's just starting now on radio. We have our first radio show coming up next Sunday. I won't plug another show on your show because that's high gear tacky, but it's
Oh
coming
no,
up.
go ahead. I'm fine with it. Go ahead and
Uh,
promote your
so
artist.
there's a media circle that I have been friends with for about 15 years, and David Bowers is a wonderful friend, and he runs a show called the David Bowers Awards, and it's just a spoof on there's an award for everything and everybody wins an award for something, and really it's not about awards. It's indie music. He breaks a lot of artists, and that's where I met the Bellamy brothers, through David Bowers. So David Martinez will be on the David Bowers show next week. We just got we're getting all the PR and everything out, so we're working on that single by single. And then my duo up in Boston, they're the ones who are, they have they're called Lori Diamond and Fred Abatelli, and they're wonderful. And they are ldfamusic.com. And they run a charity, which I also do promotions for, called Music Includes of Northborough. And it's about providing performance opportunities, music performance opportunities for people of all abilities, celebrating inclusion. So I'm all about giving everybody opportunities to be on stage, no matter what your abilities or disabilities may be. So I work for them as well.
I put all Cindy's information down below if you want to check that out in the description box. If you're on TikTok and you want to go follow her, please do. She also has I didn't put it on, but she does have a Facebook page as well. But follow her on TikTok for sure to get all the latest information on what she's doing with the clients she's working with. If you have any questions about publicity, how to make your page pop, look her up. Send her a question saying, "Hey, how do I expand my footprint, my digital footprint?" And she'll be willing to talk to you about it. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that'll be that. I'll probably be doing that myself. Well, that's only because I get so many bots hitting my TikTok page. I've seriously, Cindy, I think I've blocked close to 2,000 people, or bot accounts. That's
Is
why
they,
I
they
have
over
325 people. And it's like if I let it go, I would have had close to almost 2,500. But I rather just keep it small with people I know that are real. Um, yeah, so you don't have to go back there and clean up that mess.
right?
All right, boys and girls, that is going to be. We have hit our mark. I want to thank everybody who came out in the chat, John and Steven and Jamie. Jamie's an actress, starred in a movie called Skinner Morenik that hit big, and now she's working on some new stuff. She also promotes people as well. Our good friend Tony came by and Steven came by. So thank you so much for that. We will be back here on Friday, 8 o'clock. We're doing a Friday show with Tim and Tom Gross. And we know them because they've been here before. And it's time for us to talk a little bit of Gross Fest 2026. Super excited to talk to them. Two brothers put together an affordable, family-friendly horror convention. Last year they celebrated Mark Polonia. This year they're celebrating Todd Sheets, which is a really cool director, and I'm glad to see it. Of course, I'm going to be very curious to see how many pictures that they can get of Todd on their page, because he is notorious for not showing his face. And we're going to be talking about the guest list on there. Hopefully, we'll have a special guest on Friday popping up. I really hope that happens. And so that's what's going to happen on Friday. After that, we got nothing. I'm working on it, but I got nothing lined up after the Gross Brothers. But we'll figure something out. Thank you again for your support, and we will talk to you Friday. Cindy, you stay right where you're at, and to the chat, I'm going to say good night, and we'll see you Friday. Peace.